Yes, today, as we start this show, this one mic.
Yes, today, as we start this show, this one mic, welcome to another episode of One Mic. I'm here. Let me bring my co-host into the building, Darnell Kirkland Jr. I'm DeVon Wilson D. Wills in the building. What's up, Darnell? How you doing?
What's going on?
It's all good.
Oh yeah, everything is good. I just tested positive for COVID today, but hey, I'm not the first. I won't be the last, and I'll be all right.
All right, now we gotta be safe out there, um, and you know, we thinking about you. We have to we always reminded that we are somewhere in between a pandemic and an endemic, and it's part of our world. So we'll rock with it as much as we can. So keep your energy up. Hopefully, I can make you feel better for this little time we're gonna be together. We can laugh a little bit, make going through whatever it is, and when it's time for you to shut down, we'll shut down. But welcome to Open Mic. Please, please, please. We love that you support us. Please go to realsportsguys.com or at realsportsguys on most social media platforms, and show us love. You get a chance to watch this podcast. Give us a rating, give us a 5. As Bomani would say, if you give us less than a 5, we're gonna consider you a hater. So we're gonna do that and keep it going. Like to show love. I think that's a great way to do it. We got a lot to hit in here on this show. You know, we have this notion we talk about called Fools Go. And so you might see a theme around that through this show, this element of Fools Go. People think that it's shiny and it's right and it's working. But when you take a little bite of it, you find out that gold ain't real. You believe in something that don't really have the substance that you believe it has. It's going to be as long standing. And so that might be a theme that you will sense throughout this show today, this thing called Fools Go. So pay attention to that as we get in that. Like all our shows, we're going to open up here, what's on our back page. And I think I'll kick it off. Normally I'll kick it over to the cats, but I think I'll kick it off. My guy's still gonna bring his energy. I'm gonna let him play in the corner and then come out when he need to. I'll take a little ISO ball over here as we get going in. What's on my back page is I never heard anybody getting a homework assignment in their contract. I never heard people get like we got. I in my training. Part of my master's degree is in higher ed and adult continuing education. So I'm all about lifelong learning. I'm all about credit and non-credit experiences. I'm all about all of that. But I ain't never heard anybody ever get that in their contract. And Kyler Murray created a new first, a contract where they're requiring that they're going to guarantee him $160 million, but he's got to do at least 4 hours a week of studying outside of the organized film sessions designed by the team. Now, this is new first for me, and it's raised all kinds of issues. Here on RSG, we talk a lot about the intersection between race and sports, and no position has been as volatile in terms of these discussions than the quarterback position. And to have this as part of a contract says so much. But before I settle too much on it, it just reminds me of this. If you have a chance to go check it out, I shout out everybody. I'm about loving everybody. I love the pivot. I just had a chance to watch Kevin Hart on that. It's a great show. But they have Mike Tomlin on there, and Mike Tomlin talked about the fact that one of the hardest things right now is that there are coaches who don't want to coach. And what this says to me is everything my concerns about Cliff Kingsbury. I have to say he's performed better than anticipated. But this is a cat you knew. This is a cat you've known since he was young. This is a cat that was one of the reasons why they brought you in that you could connect with because you have prior relationships. The fact that he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing is all on the head coach. It says a lot about whatever that relationship is or isn't. And 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 the fact that they had to put in the contract should be an indictment of the head coach as well. So that one's on my back page. I ain't never seen it. I don't know about you, Darnell. I don't know what you thought. I mean, you were working with high school athletes. Like, that's something I could expect you to do with one of your freshman defensive linemen or your quarterback. Get on them about, because you're trying to build habits. But a professional who you're going to give $160 million, a quarterback, I got it in 4 hours a week. Like, we got a deficit model. See, higher education, there's a difference between having an asset-based model and a deficit. That's a deficit model. For y'all to think that 4 hours is enough, the bar is not high
Well,
enough.
it's 4 hours extra, so 4 hours away from the team and stuff. But
Yeah,
still,
but that's still nothing. That's 4 hours in a week. Like, they people do 4 hours in
well,
a
four
day
hours,
with
yeah,
their team.
4 hours a week should be a super. It should be an easily attainable goal. But I thought you were going to go the other way when you brought the pivot. I thought you were going to bring up Jamarcus Russell and the Raiders giving them blank tapes to study, and he said, "Yeah, I studied the tape of the Chicago Bears." Yeah, but no, I thought that's where you were going with that.
I thought about going back. I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole too much. I wanted to because I think the onus is not even that Jamarcus Russell issue. That's on the coach. Again, there's reason why certain players don't do certain things with certain coaches, because the expectations, the way they do it. I think sometimes we take these coaches and we let them off the hook, and especially in this situation where these two had a prior relationship. So he should be able to have the strength of getting him was that they felt like he could connect with Kyler on a higher level. And if Kyler is not doing that after this time, then that's on the coach. That's on the coach. You can't have that happen along with Kyler. And so to me, you are setting this relationship on a really bad foundation. And then for the agent to allow that to be in the contract, there's so many public relations problems with that. I'm just like, there were so many people failing on this one for it to get out. But the fact of the matter, I mean, if you're gonna put a mark in there, don't put 4 hours in there. You got to put at least put 8. I mean, I'm just like, I mean, Tom Brady gonna do 4 hours on Monday, outside of it, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to do 4 hours on Monday outside of the session. I mean, like, 4 hours should be done in the first on day one, and in the rest of the week you should be able to glide. So this is your full time job, right? That's what it's supposed to be. But that's on my back page. What about you, man? What's on your back page?
Well, it's Gary Antoine Russell fight week. He's fighting against Rantis Bartholomew on PBC. Um, this is one of the hottest prospects in boxing. He fights in the 140 division, and the name, of course, should sound familiar to you because Gary Antoine Russell is the younger brother of Gary Russell Jr. and also Gary Antonio Russell Jr. And this is one of the better fighters. Well, just to explain to you who Gary Antoine Russell is, this man beat Jerron Boots Ennis in the amateurs and Olympic trials. He's the reason why Jerron Boots Ennis didn't make the Olympic team. And you can say the same for Richardson Hitchens. So this is a very talented guy. And I'm looking forward to watching him enter the ring come this Saturday.
Is this the first Russell to fight after Pops passed away?
Yeah, I believe so.
So I mean, that's gonna add another part to the storyline. I mean, you're so used to like having them all walk out, having Pop somewhere near, right, the ring, even in his, even you got Gary Russell. All the Russells got Gary in it, but all the Russells,
Yeah,
in the previous fight that he lost, Pops was in the corner, right, I believe,
yeah.
or at least there. And so, fighting this first fight without their father being there, that's going to be another part of the storyline as well. So, we'll wait to see how that rolls out. Okay, all right. So we're gonna get into the booth a little bit, and continue this thread around foods because there's definitely some foods going in Arizona. So we know that, that whole that right there, and we're gonna do a segment I think in our next podcast just on Food's Goal in terms of football. This thing that in Arizona gonna be in the center of my Food's Goal conversation, but that's definitely some Food's Goal here in that first segment. But we're gonna get into the mix. We got this KD Celtics thing that's brewing out here, and I mean, it's an interesting thing. Like all teams should probably be interested in KD. So what? Why not the Celtics? And we want to dig into this a little bit here on this podcast uh, because there's a lot of layers to it. And so let's just start off with the idea of the trade. Okay, so let's think about what KD is worth. And I got some ideas, about what I might give if I'm the Celtics. But um, let me start with you a little bit, Darnell. We'll get layered into it a little bit, but on the surface, if you were the Celtics, what do you give to get KD?
All right, so the original trade offer was Derek White, Jalen Brown in the first round pick, and Brooklyn ended up countering with Marcus Smart, Jalen Brown, and another role player and multiple first round picks. If I'm Boston, I would include Marcus Smart in that deal, but there's one role player that I would not include in that deal, and that role player is Robert Williams. Um, any combination of the other role players is fine with me. I mean, not any combination, but any other of the role players. If you go Marcus Smart, you can go Marcus Smart, Grant Williams, Jalen Brown, a couple picks. I'll do it. You can go Horford, Jalen Brown. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not giving up Robert Williams, and that's where I draw the line if I'm the Celtics. But it'll be interesting as far as if they'll actually pull the trigger on this deal.
Yeah, so this is what I would give because it kind of splits a little bit on the um, trade side in terms of um, you know being able to think about some picks. So what I would give is I'll give Jalen Brown, Derek White. I'll give the 2023 pick and a 2025 pick because in 2023 they got some multiple picks, so they still can do some recovery. 2024 is a little light on some of the picks, but I go with 2025 first round picks. And then if I had to, I'd throw in Grant Williams. And the reason why I do that is you still got Gallinari, Horford, Durant, and the other Williams around your rotation in terms of how you can play flexibly with your lineup with your bigs. I would try to hold on to Marcus Smart because I think there could be an interesting combination with. I think you could probably play Brogdon and Mark and Smart together sometimes. I think there's ways you can really work that lineup as a start. I think this gives you a lot of flexibility if you can get away with it. I would do that for my picks and see where they fit on that. That's the way I would probably approach it.
The reason why I disagree is because I think, well, to their defensive identity, which is kind of crazy to say because Marcus Smart was Defensive Player of the Year. I think Robert Williams is a little more important to that defensive identity because he covers up all the sins on the back end. And if you have, I think the dynamic of him, Horford, like say if they do give up Marcus Smart, Jalen Brown, and Grant Williams or something like that, a deal kind of like that, they'll still have a lineup where they can go to with Brogdon, Tatum, KD, Horford, and Robert Williams. And in that lineup, Brogdon's the shortest player. He's 6'5". Everybody else is 6'9". You know what I'm saying? Everybody else on the court is 6'9", and Robert Williams is the only non-shooter. So that just opens up so much more. Especially, and I would be unwilling to give up Robert Williams because I think he gives you something that no one else really can give you. And with Brogdon there, I still think he can give you some of that ball pressure and defense. Um, and you don't necessarily have to be a world beater at that spot with all that size behind you, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think that when you have a Player of the Year candidate, if you could sneak it around, like I would, I think I think Marcus has got some big games in him, but I know you got to give up something to get KD. I also, if I could keep Marcus, it helps you with a transition beyond KD, which I think is very important part of of this deal. That you have to be able to think about life, beyond KD, and so I would definitely uh, try to do that. But if you got to give him up, you got to give him up. So let's get into, like, what does this really mean for the chemistry and what they built? Like, this, the one thing about um, Boston is, for the most part, they built through the draft, built a core. Um, this core has made it to the finals. Um, you felt like leaving it that they had some things they could work on, but they could still get back. And what does it do when you have this kind of stuff happening out there, for the chemistry for this group?
Well, in my opinion, if Boston is unwilling to pull the trigger in the end, they've made a huge mistake. They've alienated one of the best players on their roster, one of the stars, and it goes to further prove the reputation, and this is the reason why Anthony Davis never considered going to Boston.
Yeah.
If you remember back when that saga happened, his dad, Anthony Davis' dad, came out and said that we will never play for the Boston Celtics for the way that they treated Isaiah Thomas, and they have this stigma that they have no loyalty to their own players, and I think this just further kind of proves that whole narrative, especially going back from Paul Pierce and them. They traded them out of there after all they did for Boston. They traded Isaiah Thomas, like I said, and after the death of his sister, and now nobody. I know it's the NBA, nobody's safe really, but you're just coming off of a finals run, and Jalen Brown was the best player in that finals on your team. So what does that do? Anyways, Jalen Brown's contract is up in 2024. So if this caused a fracture on that chemistry, he could very well be gone. So I think they need to make this trade happen. If it doesn't, if they can't clear this trade, they might be in some trouble.
And this continues, like, you start to think about Brad Stevens, and I was telling you as we were prepping to come on the air, I read this great article on kind of breaking down the differences between Brad Stevens and Danny Ainge, and talking to other GMs and other clubs, and other people describe Danny Ainge as someone who would, you know, he would try to bleed you and then bleed you again. Danny was coming and he would just negotiate and really push it, where they thought Brad was always someone who would be fair, that people enjoy calling him and talking to him about things. But then you see a maneuver like this, and this, like you said, this is one of the moves, like from The Wire, like basically, if you come at the king, you bet not miss. If you he pulled his first move, big move right here, and it can all collapse on him if he doesn't know how to manage these relationships. And it just seems like, and I don't know where Udoka fits on this conversation and things like this, but it feels like this is not being managed well. And one of my criticisms of Brad Stevens is the interpersonal dynamics, the way he managed those, even under the when Kyrie was here and things like this. And he even admitted that he could have managed those relationships better. And it feels like some of this is playing out in this space. Although no one would begrudge you to go after someone like KD, it just feels like they're a team like this that was so close. The growth was really about your star Tatum. Like, Jalen showed up. It was really about those moments of Tatum, and it was weird how eerie it was that Tatum's performance was so similar to some of KD's performances in Oklahoma City down the stretch in some of these finals and big finals games, where it was about taking the right shot and trusting your teammates, even though the coach was saying that. And Jason had the same thing he needed to get through. and really that's the moment for him to overcome, and I think he could go that level with the team that you have. So it feels nobody begrudge you trying to ask about KD, right? But if but the last team I thought would come to the table would be Boston because I felt like they got the young nucleus, and really them getting over the top is really about Tatum's growth, less about I thought Jalen did what he was supposed to do. It felt like Tatum's growth wasn't there, but I felt like the learning experience prepared him to be able to go to that next level. And I felt like they could probably, and with Brogdon coming over, I felt like that was a championship move. And so that was a long-term championship move, meaning I think this is something that could stretch out a little bit longer. So that was my biggest thing, and I'm wondering how you feel about where Brad is in this. And maybe am I a little off in the way I'm thinking about it?
Well, I don't really think. Well, with you and Brad Stevens, I feel like you have something going on with Brad Stevens because it seems like ever since like that 2017, 2018 season, there's always something going on with Brad. He might be your ultimate fool's gold guy, but I don't necessarily see him that way, but I just see it more as Boston's culture, and maybe he's ingrained in that culture. You know, what I'm saying, sitting under um, Danny Ainge and all them for these years. But no, I don't think it's really just on Brad Stevens.
Yeah, and you know, part of it is I loved him as a college coach. I can tell you that I loved him, but I felt like he got a level of sponsorships, and this is taking my research that allowed for him to get up and escalate through the ranks in a way and doesn't get things highlighted in ways that other people get things highlighted. And enforced. I mean, he basically was a major reason why things fall apart because he wasn't able to manage it. He mentioned it, but what does he get? He doesn't get fired. He gets a raise. He gets promotion. So to me, that is indicative of what happens in college sports for some people. And so that's the part that I struggle with him and being able to do it. And then this stuff plays out. All right. So
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
you see what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
that's my biggest issue with him. That's not happening from other cats. All right. And so let's talk about as we look at this, let's talk about the KD side of it. Is there an element of fool's gold in this thing about KD? Like, is there some buyer beware on this?
I think so. I mean, his talent is A1, one of the best scorers to ever play. But um, if the goal is, I think on paper he should put Boston as the favorite to win it all. But is it really going to play out that way? How is the chemistry going to work? I know him and Tatum can get along well. Ime Udoka came from the Nets, so he already knows KD. So it looks like that might work, but at the end of the day, he has a KD has a way of going places and you know causing issues with the with the team chemistry, and it doesn't like almost like what you said with Brad Stevens. Like um, sometimes it doesn't necessarily fall on him because he has the name, he's Kevin Durant, he has the image, so you don't always say it's his fault. He gets into it with the Warriors, okay, it's Draymond's fault. He goes to the Nets, it's not his fault. You know what I'm saying? When his fallout was OKC, it wasn't his fault. But the common denominator is he's always falling out with somebody, and I think Boston might be making a mistake. We might look back in a couple years and say that Boston made a big mistake by trading away their core and the chemistry that they already had to bring in somebody that let's face it, he's 34 years old, coming off he's Achilles a couple years ago, but still he's an aging guy. He had an Achilles in the past. He seems to miss time every year. Um, you know, maybe this is maybe this is a depreciating asset, and that's something you got to look at. And you might have to look at KD as fool's gold at this point.
Yeah, it's funny because Boston keeps that looking at the grass the grass is greener on the other side, but the group that's held together has been the ones who they've been raising since babies, right? And it's like they keep Rozier, they pushed him to the side. I think brought Kyrie in. And was trying to push Marcus aside. Now they let Rozier go because Rozier was pushing back. Marcus stays, and Marcus is the one that really kind of leads them through the thing. And it almost means probably why they probably have to include Marcus in the trade because Marcus has probably been the most vocal of that strategy. Like he's the one who's probably pushed back the most of it. So if there is a trade, that might be one of the reasons why they might end up including Marcus in the trade, is because he's probably been the most vocal about the lack of trust in their initial investments in these guys who proved it over and over again. Where everything else fall out, it's been Jalen, Marcus, and
Tatum.
Tatum, who've kept it all together, right? Like through all of it. And then they had to bring Horford back, who was still a part of that, right? So it's been that core group who kept them, who kept the culture, kept things going. And it's this idea of even patience. Like, and we ain't talking about being really patient with Boston. Like, they are growing, their trajectory is the right trajectory. It's about another level of growth. They made a move for Brogdon, and it just feels like a level of impatience that I could see in probably all the other teams, but Boston. Like, I might see it in Milwaukee. I could probably make a rationale for anybody else. Boston's that one team I'd be like, I could almost make a better case for going back to Golden State and Golden State getting in the Derby than Boston, because I feel like Boston's got some pieces together and have really built this really good culture. So I'm with you that I think there could be an element of fool's gold on it, and a lot of it's going to depend on what they give up.
Right.
I would fight not to give up Marcus, but if they give him up, I think there's something they lose. In there's something that Draymond factor in the locker room holding it together that they lose. I think is important because that's not what KD wants to do. And it's the passiveness of it that I think is the issue. KD's a straight baller, but he doesn't like the other aspects of what it takes to be that dog, which means it's managing that locker room. Like that's part of the deal. Like you the locker room CEO. And I don't think he likes all that stuff. And so you need a person like Marcus, who was well documented as one of the people who got it turned around this year because he was willing to say the things that most people weren't willing to say. And in championship runs, you got to have that.
So watch this move. So what if I keep Robert Williams, but I do trade to bring in Patrick Beverly?
Would you say Patrick Beverly?
Because Patrick Beverly, I'll make another move to bring in Patrick Beverly because I know Utah Jazz they tanking, and Danny Ainge's gonna give it to you. He gonna give him to you because he still bleed green. So
Yep.
I think he can bring you a lot of the same stuff that Marcus Smart will give you. That's just an idea I had. He can defend the ball, can shoot. He can shoot open shots. He can hit open shots, and he adds that locker room piece.
Yeah. Now, if you can make a move like that and get Patrick Bev, then I'm all in. I'm all in. But you need that. You need that person who's gonna hold that down because that's just part of the job description. KD would prefer not to do. I don't think he will. I don't think he. I think he might do it if he has to do it. He just prefers not to do it. And if that's not where he's at, then or that's something that Tatum's going to pick up. Like, but both of them can be passive, right? So that to me, with a coach like Udoka, who doesn't seem like the passive guy, like he is, I think having a guy like Marcus in his locker room helps. That's his personality playing out in the front. So you got to have a dog like that somewhere. And I don't know if Grant Williams is that person to be able to hold that up. But yeah, if you can make a move and get somebody like that, I think that's all in. That's all in. So we're gonna watch this thing. We're gonna see where it goes. We're gonna see how it plays out. And see what happens. Is it gonna be real gold or fool's gold? Stay tuned, y'all. Stay tuned. All right, we're in the grand finale. We changed a little bit. We're gonna change it down to like, what do you want to share with the people, man? Just final word you want to share with our folks who come here and listen to. Is there something you just want to share with them?
I'll let you go first on this one.
All right. Well, one of the things that and again, I believe in like giving people their flowers, sharing love. I absolutely love and I'll promote whatever. Had a chance to listen to Kevin Hart on the Pivot. You got a chance to check it out. I'm gonna give people a shout out because that's just who I am. And I just loved his perspective that he had on the importance of how he's really built his business and his life around collaboration. And he really talked about the role that ego plays in getting in the way to people's success, and the way in which it's caused, groups and bands to break up because people could not put aside ego for the greater good. And I'm really saying that if you're out there working on a project, you're trying to build. It's important to really think about checking ego at the door. I think one of the things that I've learned and grown, and working with Darnell and Isaiah and a lot of these young cats who bring this energy in, man, they hit me with something new all the time. And what I've tried to check myself, let me step back and see what energy they bring in. And I think it's important when you're trying this collaborative, creative space, whatever you're doing, is that you got to really check your ego at the door if you want to reach to the greater good and the greater bag. That ego will be your biggest barrier to your long-term success. All right, I'll leave it over to you, Darnell.
All right, I have a public service announcement to Kevin Durant. You got to realize, the best thing for you. You have to. You're gonna realize that you're gonna look around in a couple years. You're gonna realize that you should have stayed in Brooklyn. I think the best thing for you is to stay in Brooklyn. You got your boy Kyrie. He said he's gonna stay at least for this year. You got Ben Simmons there. You got Roy Summer. They added there's a whole different supporting cast of guys. They got more size. They got more defense. I think the best scenario for you is to stay in Brooklyn. If you already saw Miami pulled out, you're not going back to Golden State. Boston Boston might be an interesting situation, but at the end of the day, you don't want to do that. That's a terrible look for you. You guys got swept by them, and you already have the reputation that if you can't beat them, join them because what you did with Golden State in the first place, and you can't do the same thing twice because that's gonna look bad. Because you got to remember, well, how are you going to be remembered? And I still believe that you have an opportunity to take this Brooklyn team possibly to a championship if you are who they say you are, which I believe. Like you said to Patrick Beverly back in the day, you know who I am. I'm Kevin Durant. Now it's time for you to show the world who you are, and that's the thing I wanted to share with the people today.
So KD basically young and telling you to watch out for that fool's gold. Till next time. Peace.